Hey there. Well, I don't think this will really work the way it's designed. I'm really determined to try to make it work. So, I bought some more screws to make sure that they got the right length. What I'm gonna do to prevent the threads from grabbing on the inside, I'm gonna put some heat shrink on the tip so that it will slide better, and hopefully I'll be able to lubricate it all to make it work better. Alright, so the first thing I have to do, okay, is take this off. Oops, reverse threads. And then I have to put one of these in, put a screw in, okay, and then have the tip stick out, and then I'm going to put some heat shrink on the end of the tip, heat it up, and I have to do it for all three of them. And I got to, hopefully the resin doesn't melt along with it when I use the heat gun on it, because it has to be hot enough to shrink the heat shrink tubing. That's the plan. I'll show it to you probably without any commentary and speed it up. Here's the inside, which shows the spiral. That's where these screws are going to go on the it's going to go on these guides, the spiral guides. And like I said, I'm going to put heat shrink on the tip so that the tip so the threads on the screw don't grab the edges of the guide, because I think that's one of the problems that prevents it from moving smoothly. One thing I've been thinking about for a while, the heat gun. Look how big this is. Look how small I want to heat this. I need something, I need to put a tip on it. It looks like there's a step here for adding tips on there. I need to get some kind of heat gun tip to narrow down so I can concentrate just in a small area. But this is all I got. So, doesn't take much. It heats up quite quickly. So I'm not going to preheat it. Alright, how much tubing do I need? Oh, not very much. Okay, and it's on there very well. I don't want tubing really to be sticking out. Okay. So I only need about that much tubing to put on the ends. Oh. Just need to cut off just a little bit. Okay, now I can't get it off. I didn't make sure that the guides were very smooth, as smooth as they should be, the edges, where those screws are gonna. So maybe one of them was catching and causing the binding. Uh-oh. I think the bottom of the screws are hitting the guide, the bottom of the guide. Oh, well, it's seated now. Yeah, I think this one's been pushed up. Yeah, these two, they've been pushed up. They're hitting the bottom of the guide. The screws are too long. Dang it. Yeah, see? Okay, maybe the other screws were actually the right size. Let's try it differently now. It wasn't going to work without the screws being on the outside anyway. Too high in the middle. Screws are too long still. I'm screwing out the, maybe it'll sit flatter. Nope, too high in the middle. I don't think it's going to work. It wants to work, but it needs some redesign somehow. Probably deeper guides would work, would help. Well, I screwed on the top plate to make sure that there's no upward movement. And I also unscrewed the inside posts that go into guides. And what I did was I unscrewed them out and then I re-screwed them until they sit, and then I gave it a little quarter turn over so that it's not sitting on the bottom anymore. Okay, so there it sits, and a little, well, less than a quarter turn probably. And now we get this action, which is the action we wanted. There's not much movement though, so I don't see the benefit of having this particular painting holder. I mean, that's probably the maximum size of a miniature bottom, maybe a little bigger. So this is for small miniatures. In fact, why don't I? The camera needed a battery change, so I didn't record all the fiddly stuff that I was doing, such as making these screws shorter, the ones that go on the top. And what I did was I used electrician's pliers, which has a, if you look at, which has a mechanism in here, or a cutting edge for cutting screws, small screws. I wouldn't, the larger screws, although you can cut them, it is very difficult. The other thing is, do not try to cut stainless steel screws with this. It is very difficult. You may be able to do it, but you may end up ruining the cutting edge of the tool. So only use it on the plain zinc type screws, and also, or brass screws like the ones I'm using here. Okay, that's what I used to cut them smaller. And then I used my little grinder to smooth out the edge at the bottom where it has a sharp edge. The other thing was the top part of the screws are rounded and sit fairly high, so what I ended up doing was grinding it down so that it was much flatter than, and here I'll show you the difference. So it's only half the height. While it was more difficult to use the actual screwdriver, I'm not putting a lot of pressure to screw the screw in. So cutting off the height will make it easier to put something on top because the screws just sit up so high that you can't really put something in the middle. Hopefully I'll be able to do that and show you. But the final result is, after doing all that and putting more lubricant inside, I was able to get this thing to actually work to some degree. The only thing is that I don't really want to go all the way out because then it gets cockeyed and doesn't want to go back in. So, but it works. I was totally doubtful that it would work. so I'm glad that all my efforts actually did end up coming up with something that actually works. As to whether I'll be using it quite often is I don't know. We'll see. There's no guarantee that it will actually stay in. Oh, silly me. You know what I forgot? I totally forgot the rubber band that's supposed to automatically squeeze this back in. Now I got to take it all apart and put the rubber band in. I won't record that. It's just a lot of unscrewing and putting it all together again, and we'll see what happens after that. Oh well. Oh, I should be able to do it just by taking off the top plate. Oh, I can't take off the top plate because these brass screws are also holding the top plate on. So I do have to take the whole thing apart. Okay, and this does not, there's a screw on the bottom. I need to fix that so that it lies actually flat instead of, there's a little bit, just a little bit sticking out, which is causing that problem. So anyway, yeah, if it had the rubber band on there, I think it would work probably a lot more smoother because it would automatically be pulling it, wanting to pull back in. So, and wouldn't bind as much, I hope. Well, we'll see. Because it's binding quite a bit now. Okay, there we go. It went in by itself. I don't know what changed, but well, I thought this might be worth recording. Just because of the different ways to put it on. I was going to put these guides in first, or these catchers, I guess. They're not really guides. But then I realized they have to go above the top of this. So I actually have to put this piece in first. Which, if I do that, see, then now I have to pull the rubber band out, put the catcher in, the slider in that way. So that's what I'm going to do right now. So I'm going to screw these small screws, the ones that hold the top on, and that'll keep the rubber band in place. Of course, these screws are been screwed in and out of the resin so many times that they're not really, when they seat, they no longer tighten, unfortunately. But it will hold it in there, or hold it down, mostly. I may have to end up gluing this top down in the end. Okay, so that's what we have. Okay, the rubber bands are sticking out. Now I gotta find the one that's broken. That's this one, and do that one first. So there's a little indentation here to catch the rubber band. So I have to catch that rubber band and then slide this in. Oh, there we go. That's one. And I gotta do the same thing for all of them. Okay. Or the rest of them. Okay, it's not as hard as I thought it was gonna be. But there we go. They're all in. And then screw them all down. Not until, well, I tighten it, I go all the way until they seat, and then I back it out, because otherwise it won't allow the slider to slide, to move. So I go all the way in, seat, back it up. Oops. And I'll seat it, back it up. These screws will have a tendency to want to screw out. So I have to keep an eye on them in the future when I'm using this. So seat, screw it out. Okay. And then I have my little heat shrinks that I need to try to kind of screw it on there. But there's so much lubricant on it, it's kind of difficult. So I'm going to use this little thing to screw it on there. That seems to work. Okay. Normally, see, that one screws in real easily. I did try using some heat on it. I'm just afraid to put too much heat and melt the resin, or it's gotten fairly hot. Now that I've done this way, oops, this one's starting to unscrew. I need to screw it down. Okay. Now that I've gotten this far and I need to actually try to shrink the heat shrink, I really can't put any heat on it because I have the rubber band in place. So these heat shrinks are just going to have to be loose like that. But hopefully it helps keep the threads on the screw from digging into the sides of the guide. I'm trying to at least start it. Not very much heat shrink that I'm putting on the end. Gotta make sure I don't unscrew the screw. At some point I can no longer I don't know if you could see that or not. Oops. But it's slowly going in. So I do want a little bit of the metal sticking out to the bottom, even though. Okay, so let's reseat this and back. That one's already seated. Back it off. Seat it. Back it off. Seat it. And remember, I ground off the top, so there's not very much for the screwdriver to catch on there. Okay, got it on there. Okay, let's try to put it back on. Oops, that rubber band's off. Okay. Let's see, now I gotta put it on counterclockwise. It's easier taking it off than putting it on, that's for sure. Okay. Alright, let's see if this works. And we're not getting the action that I want. Well, actually, I am, because I'm getting resistance. But it should automatically come back to the middle, but it's not doing that. I should be able to open it up, and then it should automatically reseat itself. It could be that it needs some more lubrication, or that I have these screws in a little too tight. Okay, back them off a little. Oh. Okay, gotta make sure everything's tight. Oh, it's actually harder than before. Which should automatically come back, but I guess this rubber band is not as tight as it needs to be. It's stretching it though. Huh. I can see that the top is coming up there a little bit, like there's some kind of binding going on with this screw. Maybe it's too far in, too long. Let's try that. That is a little easier, but that rubber band's not doing its job of pulling it back in. Oh, now I've gone out too far and it's binding. Oh, no, that went in easily. Okay, but I think I should have used a smaller rubber band. Well, I'll call it a success at this point. Let me go grab one of my other miniatures that has a open base at the bottom. Okay, I grabbed a variety of miniatures that I have. One that's fairly common is this kind. It has an open bottom, such as this one. This one has it's called a slot base. It has a slot at the bottom where the miniature slots into it. Okay, this is quite common. Well, this one is a slot base too, but it's not as deep. It's sticking out as that one. So let's try it now. So let's put this on top. And now let it go. And if I was painting, it's holding, but barely, I would say. I would have to press in on it to make it hold better. Comes off pretty easy. Okay. So here's the other one. I think that slot, it comes all the way to the bottom. So I think that's going to be a problem. See, it's not going to sit. Oh, I found a spot where it will sit. Okay. The nice thing about this style compared to this one's more straight up and down, and this one has an angle on the base. So this one's going to actually hold in better. This one's actually metal. This one here is plastic. This is metal, so you definitely don't want a metal one to fall off, because especially when it has something like this, like a sword, and it falls on a hard surface, or even on a soft surface, you'll probably either break that arm off or the sword off, or it'll definitely bend it. So anyway, but that's in there pretty good. It's not gonna come out easily. Okay, I'm not gonna tap it with the screwdriver because I don't want to mess up the paint job. I don't think I put any clear on it clear acrylic to protect it. Okay, and then we have this, which is just a flat base. This is a plastic one also. And as you can see, those screws are gonna affect the grab on it. But this is grabbing actually, barely grabbing. So it's definitely not going to be very useful for this style of base. I can tighten it some, but it's barely holding on. And the other thing that people use are, this is a plastic one, and I have put metal miniatures on washers. But again, we're going to have the problem with those screws being in the way. Okay. It's catching barely. Well, that's doing all right. Okay. I did tighten it, so but it's barely catching the edge. Okay, and if I'm painting using a paintbrush, yeah, that's going to hold it. And it's barely in there, but this will work. It's not the smooth action and grabbing that I thought it was going to do. The fact that I had to put these screws on top instead of inside. There's no way I could have put smaller screws or posts. I could have put posts in there, some either plastic posts or metal posts, but I would have had to glue them in, and it would have been not as practical, I don't think. Well, maybe have been more practical. So I did have a break on one of the guides, so that might be causing some of the problems. But overall, it does what it's supposed to, kind of. The rubber band idea, I think I just need a rubber band. I think I need a rubber band that's just a little tighter. But other than that, it'll work. I can actually tighten the miniature onto it if I need to. So I can actually screw on the turn the thumb wheel at the bottom to tighten it up into it. Definitely it's not the rubber band that's tightening it, it's this thumb screw at the bottom, which that's the shaft that goes all the way through and connects to the top. So that is my make, so to speak. This is what I have made with my 3D printer. Okay. I would say it's a success, mostly.